He was just an honest, hard-working roofer in Southwest Detroit, taking a little easy to make his back pain go away, and then he got mixed up in the dark web, and he wanted to make a little extra money so he could buy more medication for his pain. Well, I'll say this for Victor Hernandez's lawyer. He earned his pay with that absurd story. His client was just sentenced to 130 months, had an incredible $3 million judgment against him. They took 340,000 in cash and over $1 million in cryptocurrency when they ran up in his little small old house there on Florida Street in Southwest Detroit. And thanks now to the web, anybody can become an importer-exporter, and anybody can turn a particular post office location, like he did with the post office in Lincoln Park, which is a little old kind of rundown suburb just southwest of Detroit. Anybody can turn any little post office into a major trafficking hub. So Hernandez and his sister got 60 months running a family operation. But I thought this was interesting because this web stuff is much more common than I guess you only are familiar with what you're familiar with, but seems like a lot of people are getting stuff on the web, and frankly, I mean, if you're into taking DRUGSs, I mean, maybe it's an okay place to get them. I mean, especially if you're in a smaller town. But so this guy, when they raided him, they watched him for some months, and they would observe his sister and another woman going to this house that was the headquarters, and they'd come out with garbage bags that would have 13, 15, 25 packages, and the packages primarily contained Xannies and Coca-Cola. And Coca-Cola, I guess, was very high quality. But the Xannies, he was pressing up himself. He had a machine capable of making 20,000 in an hour. So you can use the network to get your source materials, like big amounts of, well, you can't get the active ingredient in a lot of stuff. Like in Xan, it's so you can't get that easily, I guess, on a dark web, but you can get, what's it called? So obviously similar, but it's a research chemical, meaning enough testing has not been done on it, but because they haven't been tested, because they were never meant, someone just made them in a lab as part of an experiment to see could he make them, and the recipe, if you will, got uploaded onto the web just through the fact that maybe someone did a PhD thesis and it goes up on one of the academic publishing platforms, and voila, someone's making this stuff and selling it. Don't know what some other bad effects might be, so be very careful. But this guy, in the space of 2 years, operating out of a little house in Detroit, feds calculated he made at least $3 million, and that's what they find him. But he had $1 million in crypto saved. Boy, some people stop in time and get out, but the temptation probably to always, if you're making, 20, 30, 40,000 a month, well, let's see, if he ran 2 years, he saved $1.5 million, he might have been making $75,000 a month. The temptation to go another 30 days is big. As a side note, working on this new documentary, Beyond Street Dreams, of Motown Mafia with Courtney Brown, who I did Motown Mafia with, about his father's drug operation in the 70s. Courtney began helping his father in the mid to late 90s with the new H operation, and they ran successfully from about 92 to 2000. No problems. They had loads lost, but the couriers did their time, didn't tell. They made money, they bought stuff, no problems. And they were out of the game for like 2-3 years. And the Pakistani contacted them. You want to do one more load? And it was going to be a big load, like 16 bricks of untouched H, and it was hard to say no. And of course, that was the one they got caught on, because not their plug, but one of the main couriers of the plug, who was his cousin actually, had been compromised, as we like to say, aka he had been caught doing something at an earlier time and he was telling. And if Courtney and his dad had just not participated, they would have gotten away with a bigger drug run in the 90s than his dad had in the 70s. I mean, in a way, well, we'll get into that in the documentary. But anyways, so right here in southwest Detroit, a guy was running his own import-export on the dark web. And the dark web, very, very lucrative. I haven't seen any cost breakdowns of how much you can make, but Zan has gotten more expensivo in the streets, in Los Calles. It's up to, if you want a real one, they would be $10 or $15. So if you can buy fake ones on the dark web for $1 or $2 and sell them for $5 or whatever they're doing, very profitable game. Same thing with those. That's just METH. Same thing with those 75-cent mollies. Guess what that is? So anyone can turn a small post office in there and their home into a international drug trafficking hub now, thanks to the internet and with the fact that all these chemical compounds that are not the one that's illegal, but are molecularly just barely different enough to not be illegal, but probably have most of the same effects. New ones of those, their recipes are going up on the academic web, not the dark web, every day. So I think that the tide of drugs has only begun. Just think about it. We're not even using anything newly invented. METH, Ron, cocaine, all this stuff's 120, 30 years old. Just think, when someone invents, a speedball in a pill or something with a little relaxation thrown in, and they make it super addictive, just imagine how that's going to sweep the world. So here in Detroit, Carlos Hernandez, 130 months, his sister 60 months for turning the little Lincoln Park post office into a major, a medium-sized trafficking hub. So dark web activities outprofit American dough.